Anna, a 25-year-old woman with a restless soul, learned about the death of her grandmother, whom she had never known, on a cold morning. The letter delivered by the courier seemed unremarkable at first, but upon opening the envelope, Anna discovered a will. Her grandmother, who had disappeared from the family's life many years ago, had left her an old country house, lost deep in the thick woods. No one in the family had ever mentioned her grandmother, and she remained a faint, distant figure from rare, fragmented memories. Anna was plagued by conflicting emotions. She didn't know what to think about the inheritance. On one hand, she felt a sense of aversion to the place that had been hidden from her for so long. On the other hand, she couldn't resist her curiosity. Like a shadow from the distant past, the house drew her in, as if it was beckoning her. Deciding to satisfy her desire to learn more, Anna dropped everything and set off in her old car to the remote village where, according to the lawyer, her inheritance was located. The journey was long and unremarkable, and the closer she got to her destination, the denser the forest became. Ahead, beyond the gloomy wall of trees, the silhouette of the house appeared. Its roof, like a black fang, pierced the sky, and its windows resembled empty eye sockets. For a moment, Anna felt her heart tighten with a strange premonition, but it only fueled her interest. She parked the car and, with some trepidation, approached the massive door. Anna struggled to open the heavy door and found herself inside a house that seemed frozen in time. The furniture was covered in dust, but everything around felt untouched and oddly alive, as if the house had been waiting for her arrival. Anna explored the spacious halls, dusty corridors, and cold rooms, but nothing caught her attention as much as the door at the end of a long corridor. She felt an inexplicable pull towards it, despite the strange sense of unease. Opening the door, she froze. The room was filled with shelves, on which dozens of antique dolls sat. Each one was unique. Someone had crafted them with a love for detail, giving each doll its own character. Some had glass eyes, others porcelain, but they were all directed straight at Anna. It felt as though the dolls were watching her, studying her every move. This unsettling feeling evoked an inexplicable terror in her. Anna approached a shelf and picked up one of the dolls. Its skin was cold, and the touch sent shivers down her spine. The doll's eyes, which from a distance appeared glassy and empty, up close resembled human eyes, with a cold, lifeless light within them. Anna quickly placed the doll back and recoiled, feeling her heart start to race. The room was growing colder, and Anna, gripped by a strange, unexplainable fear, hurried out of the room, closing the door behind her. But even after that, she couldn't shake the feeling that the dolls were still watching her, their gazes piercing through the walls, weighing on her mind. Night fell unexpectedly on Anna. The house, which during the day had seemed merely old and abandoned, under the cover of darkness transformed into something sinister. The silence was almost tangible, interrupted only by the rustling of leaves outside the window and the quiet creaking of wooden floorboards under her feet. Anna tossed and turned in bed for a long time, unable to sleep, feeling a strange unease, as if something or someone was disturbing her peace. The clock struck past midnight when a faint, almost indistinguishable sound woke her up. At first, Anna couldn't tell where it was coming from. She got out of bed and, listening carefully, slowly walked down the corridor. The closer she got to the room with the dolls, the clearer the sound became. It was a whisper. Her heart pounded wildly, and chills ran down her spine. She approached the door and froze, hearing something mumbling behind it. Anna cautiously opened the door a crack, and the whisper grew clearer. The words were strange, unfamiliar, spoken in a language she couldn't recognize. She entered the room, trying not to make a sound. In the dim moonlight filtering through the window, the dolls looked even more eerie. Their eyes, reflecting the moonlight, appeared as shimmering dots, all focused on her. The whisper came from all around, but its source was unclear. Anna stood in the center of the room, and suddenly she heard her name. It was clear, as if spoken by one of these eerie creations. Anna. It echoed in her head. She stood frozen, feeling cold fingers of fear grip her heart. The sounds grew louder, more insistent. She felt trapped, surrounded by the grim silence, broken only by these ominous whispers. They seemed to come from deep within her consciousness, seeping into her soul, eroding it with fears. Unable to withstand the pressure, Anna fled the room, slamming the door behind her. But even in the corridor, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed by those sinister voices. The whisper echoed in her ears even after she had hidden in her room and buried herself under the covers, trying to escape the growing madness. In the morning, exhausted and shattered, Anna decided to learn more about the house and its past. In search of answers, she began to explore the house more thoroughly. Looking into an old chest in the attic, she found several dust-covered diaries. The yellowed pages belonged to her grandmother, a woman Anna knew almost nothing about. She delved into the diaries, and a sinister picture began to emerge. Her grandmother described her fascination with dolls from a young age. She collected them, sought out rare specimens, and admired the artistry of creating these little works of art. But the entries gradually became darker. Her grandmother mentioned strange events connected to the dolls, and most terrifyingly, the disappearances of children in nearby villages. Anna read with growing horror. It turned out that her grandmother didn't just collect dolls, she participated in their creation. She was obsessed with the idea of preserving children's souls so they wouldn't vanish forever. But instead of granting them eternal life, she trapped them in the dolls, turning these innocent beings into prisoners of her fantasies. The further entries became increasingly distorted, as if her grandmother was losing her sanity. She mentioned voices coming from the dolls and spoke of strange phenomena occurring in the house. Anna felt a chill run down her spine as she read these lines. She began to realize that the house and its grim collection harbored something far more terrifying than she could have imagined. Closing the diary, Anna felt her world collapsing. Now she knew that something ancient and malevolent resided in this house, something tied to her family, to her blood. And perhaps this entity had already begun to influence her, not letting her escape its grasp. Several days had passed since Anna read her grandmother's diaries, and the atmosphere in the house grew increasingly oppressive. Every corner, every room was permeated with a dark energy that couldn't be escaped. But the strangeness seemed only to be beginning. One evening, tired of pondering and trying to find answers, Anna decided to tidy up the house in an attempt to distract herself. Entering the room with the dolls, she froze on the threshold. One of the dolls, the very one that had been on the shelf, was now sitting in an old chair in the center of the room, its gaze fixed directly on Anna. That gaze, cold and piercing, seemed to look into her soul, exploring every fear and secret. Anna stood paralyzed with fear, unable to tear her eyes away from the horrific sight. Her hands trembled as she approached the doll, hoping it was just a figment of her imagination. But no, the doll had indeed moved on its own. In a fit of panic, she grabbed the doll and threw it out the window, feeling relieved to finally be rid of this nightmare. But a few minutes later, she found that the doll was back in its place on the shelf, as if it had never left the room. Anna barely stifled a scream of horror. She began to realize that these dolls were not just objects. Something far more terrifying was trapped within them. She recalled the words from the diaries. Her grandmother wrote about souls imprisoned in the dolls. The souls of children who had died many years ago. These beings were suffering and wanted to be freed, but something was holding them here, in these porcelain bodies. Despair filled Anna's mind. She felt as if the entire house was being filled with an invisible darkness, penetrating her mind. She could feel the pain of these souls, their suffering, and their hopelessness. But what could be holding them? The answer was obvious, something evil, a dark force that had bound them forever to these dolls. Anna realized that she was not just a random witness. Now she was connected to this eerie story, and it depended on her how it would end. Several sleepless nights passed. Anna began to notice that her dreams were increasingly filled with images of the dolls, their grim eyes and cold smiles. Each day the dolls grew more aggressive. What began with simple movements around the room soon turned into a full-on hunt for her life. One morning, not fully awake, Anna felt a strange touch. Her eyes opened, and she saw one of the dolls sitting on her bed, its hands clutching the blanket. Anna screamed and pushed the doll away, but it held on tightly, not letting her go. She threw it onto the floor, but the doll didn't relent, clinging to her legs with its porcelain fingers. In a panic, Anna grabbed the first thing she could find and struck the doll, but it didn't even flinch. Finally, using all her strength, she managed to break free and dash out of the room, leaving the eerie creature behind. But this was just the first warning. Soon, the dolls began attacking her more frequently, forcing her to stay on high alert. They set traps that Anna barely escaped. At first, it was something minor, a knife falling from a shelf, its sharp end aiming straight for her, or a chandelier crashing down from the ceiling just as she passed underneath. But each time, the situations became more dangerous. Anna realized that the dolls weren't just threatening her, they demanded something more. They demanded blood. Desperation and terror overwhelmed her. Anna saw the dolls come to life, eager to claim what could sustain them. It seemed their eyes grew greedier, their movements more purposeful. The dolls craved her blood, her fear, her life. And Anna knew that if she didn't find a way to stop them, she wouldn't survive in this house. She felt the house and its dark inhabitants pulling her deeper into their embrace. Her strength was waning, and she desperately sought a way to escape this nightmare. But with each passing day, it seemed less likely. Anna could no longer stay in this house. Thoughts of the tortured children and her grandmother, driven mad, flooded her mind with renewed force. The house, which had initially seemed merely frightening, now felt like a deadly trap. The dolls, once mere silent spectators, had become her relentless pursuers. Their eyes followed her every move, their cold hands reaching out from the darkness. She felt herself losing her sanity, but one thing was clear: she had to run. Anna hastily gathered a few belongings and rushed toward the exit. Her legs trembled, her heart pounded so hard it felt like it would leap out of her chest. But as soon as she tried to open the door, the house came alive. Heavy shutters slammed shut with a crash, and the windows became unbreakable barriers. Anna desperately tried another door, but it too was locked. Suddenly, ominous creaks and groans echoed throughout the house. The dolls, once silent and still, came to life and began to chase her. Anna dashed from room to room, trying to find a way out, but each attempt ended in failure. The dolls filled the hallways, their footsteps, barely audible like whispers, filled the space around her. It seemed they controlled everything: the walls, the doors, the air. Anna stumbled, falling to the floor, and immediately felt small, cold hands grab her legs. In horror, she shook off the dolls, continuing to fight for her freedom. Finally, she reached the attic, where she felt relatively safe. Anna realized that running was pointless. The house and the dolls were connected. As long as the dark force held the children's souls within the dolls, they wouldn't let her go. The walls of the house seemed to close in around her, forcing her to choose, stay or fight to the end. The dim light of the lamp illuminated a pile of old things covered in a thick layer of dust. Here, in the gloomy silence, Anna unexpectedly came across an old box, covered in cobwebs and secured with rusty metal locks. With difficulty, she opened it and found old documents, letters, and photographs inside. One photo particularly caught her attention. It was a worn black and white picture of her grandmother standing next to several children. Each child held a doll, and there wasn't a trace of joy on their faces. Their eyes looked lifeless, as if they already knew their fate. Turning the photograph over, Anna noticed an inscription, neatly written in fine script. Louise, 1935. Thomas, 1937. Marie, 1940. And so on, listing each name and year of birth. Her heart sank as she realized that these children were not just strangers in an old photograph. They were the very souls now trapped in the dolls. Anna felt fear tighten its grip on her, but at the same time, voices began to echo in her mind. Quiet, barely discernible at first, they grew louder and more distinct. The voices of the children begged her, pleaded for help. They said they couldn't find peace, that they were tormented and immobilized in their porcelain bodies. Their suffering had continued for many years. Anna could hear their anguish, feel their pain, and each breath they took echoed in her soul. These voices came from the deepest recesses of her mind, making her heart race and cold sweat break out on her forehead. Anna realized she had no choice now. She had to help these children, or she would never escape this cursed house alive. But how to do it, she didn't yet know. With trembling hands, Anna pulled out old diaries and documents from the box, hoping to find answers to her questions. Her grandmother wrote in detail, methodically, leaving traces of what had happened many years ago in this house. The pages of the diary revealed a horrifying secret that Anna couldn't have imagined. It all began with the loss of her own child, long ago. The loss wounded her grandmother so deeply that she decided to find a way to preserve the memory of her child and of other children who had passed too soon. Her grandmother experimented with various mystical and scientific methods, striving to create dolls that could hold the souls of children. And at some point she succeeded. But everything went wrong. Instead of finding peace in these dolls, the children's souls were trapped in them forever. They suffered, tormented, unable to break free. These dolls became a prison for them, where they languished for years, unable to escape or find peace. The more Anna read, the more horrified she became. She realized that her grandmother might not have intended to cause harm initially, but in her grief and despair, she had created something monstrous. And now this monster lived in her house, with Anna at the center of this nightmare. A sense of guilt and responsibility for the fate of these children grew within Anna. She knew she had to find a way to free them, but she couldn't understand how. All she knew was that now her life and the lives of these children were individuals forever intertwined. And if she couldn't help them, they wouldn't let her go until the very end. Gasping for breath, Anna realized that there was only one thing left in the attic that she hadn't examined. In the far corner, hidden behind old trunks and boxes, lay a large, antique doll, covered in dust and cobwebs. It was bigger than all the others, its face disfigured by time, and its eyes seemed to watch Anna, absorbing every emotion. This doll was the source of all the evil, the very entity controlling the others. Memories from drenched in her grandmother's diaries surfaced in her mind, and Anna understood this doll was the origin of all the pain and suffering. Her grandmother had imbued it with a power capable of holding souls, turning it into a puppet of dark energy. If Anna destroyed this doll, she would free the children's souls and break the house curse. Gathering all her strength, Anna lunged at the doll, her hands gripping the old fabrics and cracked porcelain. The doll resisted as if it had a mind of its own, but Anna didn't back down. The cries of the children, their pain and fear, echoed in her head, giving her strength. She grabbed the nearest heavy object, a metal rod, and with fury, struck the doll in the chest. The cracking of porcelain echoed throughout the house, as if reverberating through the walls. The doll shattered into pieces, and from its broken body oozed a thick black substance, spreading a foul stench of decay. At that moment, Anna felt the air in the house grow lighter and heard the children's whispers turn into a quiet sigh of gratitude. The house began to collapse. Cracks spread along the walls, the ceiling began to crumble, and the floors trembled. Anna, springing into action, rushed for the exit. Now the doors yielded, the shutters burst open with a crash, letting in fresh air. She ran outside, barely escaping before the house began to crumble on the weight of time and destruction. But just as Anna began to believe the nightmare was over, she felt something cold touch her leg. She looked back and saw a small porcelain doll, which had survived the destruction, standing at her feet, with empty, sinister eyes fixed on her. There was something malevolent hidden in its lifeless gaze. Not all the souls had departed. One had remained, and this soul was not going to let Anna go so easily. The doll followed her, not leaving her side, as if its fate was now tied to hers, a grim reminder that some nightmares never end.